So, do you need a tragic backstory? I got some comments from folks about my last video. Apparently, y'all don't need trauma in your role-playing games. First, a baseline about where I was coming from in the last video. I was giving advice on how you create a compelling character for your role-playing game, and yes, that included giving your character some sort of trauma in their backstory. But the reason I gave that advice was well-founded in the basics of storytelling. Basically, all of the most popular fantasy characters you can think of deal with some sort of trauma, either in their past or gained over the course of the narrative. Frodo at Weathertop and the rest of the Fellowship when they lost Gandalf, the Starks at the loss of Ned and after the Red Wedding, the entire main cast of Avatar: The Last Airbender. The reason I would even give this advice is that trauma and dealing with trauma is a key element to character-based storytelling.
You're hiding whatever she is in a mental vault.
Oh yeah, the vault. That's where the stuff I can't handle goes. Kerplunk.
But are there examples in fantasy media of characters that don't have trauma but still have compelling narratives? Maybe it's the genre of play, epic fantasy, that lends itself to these sorts of backstories. How about the cozy fantasy genre? I'm talking the likes of Studio Ghibli, Terry Pratchett, Legends and Lattes. In fact, let's start there. Let's take a look at the description for Legends and Lattes. After a lifetime of bounties and bloodshed, Viv is hanging up her sword for the last time. The battle-weary orc aims to start fresh, opening the first ever coffee shop in the city of Thune. Okay, so it sounds to me like she's recovering from trauma. Okay, well, what about Terry Pratchett, one of my favorite fantasy authors, known for his comedic series Discworld? Let's take a look at his characters. Commander Vimes grew up in poverty with a single parent. Rincewind spends most of his time running away from people who want to kill him. Moist von Libvig. Nope, he was bullied at school and ran away to become a con man. Now, none of these stories have downer vibes, but all of their characters have trauma, either in their backstories or constantly dogging them. Okay, surely Studio Ghibli will save us. Okay, cozy fantasy has betrayed us. I get it. You want to roll dice and have a Hot Springs episode. You don't want to think. It makes sense, but remember that the Hot Springs episode only works because it's a tension release valve. Have you ever watched an action movie with a car chase or a gunfight that just falls flat? Normally, it's because it's just action with no emotional weight behind the characters involved in it. The action scene is just there because the movie's supposed to have it. The point I'm making here isn't that you need to give all your characters tragic backstories. What I am suggesting is that trauma is a common and very effective tool in developing a compelling character. Choosing not to use trauma in your game is your prerogative, just as any tool I'd give you is. You can play in a fun game that has no characters with traumatic backstories, just as you could play in a game without death, or that's mostly comedic. These tables and games could be fun, and could work for a certain type of player. I'd probably have a good time in there as a one-shot, but for a full campaign, there you might lose me. I think that while that campaign could be fun, for me, it would lack the emotional depth that I'm looking for in my games. But that's me, and that's what I like. You could be after something entirely different. Maybe you play tabletop RPGs to get away from deep emotions like that, and that's totally fine. More power to you. Now, with all that said, if you think I've missed some character that has a lot of emotional depth, but also no trauma either in their past or throughout their story, please let me know in the comments, and feed the algorithm my pain. Thanks so much for watching, and special thanks to my patrons for helping support the content that I'm bringing to you. If you're interested in supporting the channel, I have a Patreon that gives you access to a Dungeons & Dragons supplement called the Codex of Contagion that reworks diseases in D&D. If that sounds cool to you, I'd encourage you to check it out. My name is Ben DeHart, and remember to send me your backstory. I've been asking you all week. See ya.